You're very, very welcome to the Center for Behavior Analysis at Queen's University, our webinar series 2024. And I'm delighted to introduce you to Rasmi Krippendorf. Dr. Rasmi Krippendorf is employed by the municipality of Asker in Norway as a behavior analyst systems coordinator, which is very interesting. And he works with deviant behaviors in children in the districts of 100 kindergartens and 50 schools. He's got 3 children of his own, so he knows what he's talking about. And he's got a wife and a cat as well. So I don't know in which order that happens. But anyway, Rasmi, I'm delighted that you agreed to give us a webinar tonight. And I'll hand over to you straight away. I'll leave the presentation, but I'll be in the background if anybody, if you need any help or just shout. And I'll have a look at the chat in case anybody makes any comments that you might want to respond to as we go through the presentation. For the people that are not familiar with the platform, remember there will be attendance checks. There will be somebody can't hear. Coletta can't hear, and somebody's thumbs up. Maybe the technical support could have a look at that, please. There will be just refresh your browser. That might just do the trick for you. Thanks, Mallory. What was I going to say? The attendance check, there will be 4 times there will be a red bar coming up at the top. So click that you're attending. You must click at least 3 of those so that we know that you've attended and that you get your CEUs for this event. Okay, so I'm handing over to Rasmi. Thanks very much for coming, and over to you.
Thank you, Carola. I'm very glad to be invited. This is my first presentation on this platform, and I'm looking forward to it. You should see my presentation, Fluency-Based Instruction in the Classroom, on your screens. I hope you do. Please let me know if you don't. Let's dive right into it. When I say fluency-based instruction, it is also sometimes referred to as frequency building. Both of these methods are sort of a precision teaching light version. I think the new definition of precision teaching by Evans is including the use of the Standard Celeration Chart as the thing that distinguishes precision teaching from the other methods. For those of you not familiar with these concepts or methods, I'm going to introduce you to them now. Please take out some paper and something to write with. We're going to do a little practical thing here now. And please pay close attention to the instructions on the way, as I've done this a lot of times live, very few times online. So let's see how it works. I'm going to start a timer for 10 seconds, and I want you to write down your name as many times as possible in 10 seconds. And you can write your full name, you can write just your surname, just your whatever name you have. You choose for yourself, but try to make it readable letters, not just your signature, because nobody else can usually read that. So try to print with normal letters when you start this writing down. As I cannot see you, I do not know if you're ready, but I hope you are. I will ready my timer here, and you got 10 seconds now to write down your name as many times as possible. Just keep writing throughout all 10 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And we're done. Now, write down the number of countable, readable letters that you wrote down, and record them on the paper. Just write how many letters you can read that you put on the piece of paper. Yes. Now I want you to do the same thing with the hand. And this is usually evoking a lot of laughter out there. So Once you've done laughing, get ready with the other hand, and 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. And now you do the exact same thing. You count the readable letters. There might not be that many, it's all right. But record the score, just write down the number of, write down the number of letters that are readable. And we're going to do this one more time. The same hand that you just used, one more 10 seconds. Get ready. 3, 2, 1, go. And we're done. And again, you count the readable letters and record the score. Just jot down the number. And you're not going to believe this, but we're going to do it one more time with this damn other hand. So the same hand again that you've just done to, another 10-second round. Please bear with me. This is going somewhere. 3, 2, 1, go. Again, count the readable letters and record the score. Now, we've done this 4 times in total. The first one was a baseline, and now we have 3 data points, and that makes a graph. Yay, we love graphs. Precision teaching is both a sort of learning program where we set up education in a special format using intervals, so we can actually get a graph like I'm going to show you later on. But it is also a way to register learning. So it is one of Evan's. When I say Evans, I'm referring to an article by Evans et al., where they outline the definition of precision teaching. What we started out with was, if you can see my cursor, I'm showing you the first baseline recording here. These data are possibly not anywhere close to yours, but it's just an example. Let's say in 10 seconds, I was able to write 12 readable letters with my normal writing hand. And I may have one that was sort of slurry or blurry, and I couldn't read it. So I put a 1 here, and this is put in the graph. Then we switched hands and did the same thing 3 times. And if everything is going according to plan, most of you would be able to draw a graph more or less like this, that you had maybe 6 letters, and then maybe 7, then maybe 9. And you had maybe 3 errors, then 2, then 1 unreadable letter. Some of you will not get these graphs exactly, or you will have different versions of it, and we're going to get back to that later on. So in precision teaching, we talk about level of mastery or fluency. For this particular exercise here, let's say if my right hand was used to do the first 12 readable letters here, that is sort of my baseline. That would also be my level, or where my mastery begins. I would need to get above this threshold before I can say that my left hand would be able to write as fluently as my right hand. Of course, there may be some of you that doesn't. I mean, for my sake, I do not write that much for hand anymore. I use a keyboard on a computer most of the time, but I learned it when I was a kid, and I can write quite well with my right hand, but not with my left hand. So the data would be more or less as is on screen right now for me. Maybe a little faster on the right hand than the 12. I think I would probably be about 20. So why is this important? When we do a physical skill, A rule of thumb is that the fluency level is, I'm sorry, it's in Norwegian here. I couldn't change it. It's a picture. But the fluency level is not for all skills at all, and it changes from individual to individual. But a rule of thumb is that 1 response per second is the beginning level of a physical skill. What that means is that if we look at this graph, if I get 60 per minute here, my level of expertise is from month to month staying at the same level. Whereas if I have not achieved this level, when a month go by, and each point here is a month, if a month goes by, I will more or less fall to half of the level I had attained by training. So for every month, we lose more and more of what we already thought we had learned. This is possibly connected to what is called muscle memory, but it's a phenomenon that is quite well known in schools, especially between the first and second grade. I just have to say that for verbal behavior or verbal skills, the rule of thumb is 2 responses per second. In school, between the first and second grade, we often see that children that the teachers thought had learned the letters of the alphabet, they come back after 3 months of holiday, summer holiday, and teachers complain that a lot of the kids have actually forgotten half of the letters. It's as if they have to start all over. Of course, it doesn't take as long to reestablish, but in 3 months, this is what we see. The curve of mastery is declining quite fast, but not if you have reached the magical threshold of 1 response per second for physical skills and 2 responses per second for verbal skills. Now, when we do precision teaching or any kind of exercise implying these methods, it doesn't have to be using the Standard Celeration Chart. It can also be the aforementioned fluency-based instruction or frequency building. We want to record some things to give us an idea of if we are actually learning. So there are 4 things that we need to have on paper. What to record, the total number of responses, of course, but also if we do some errors along the way. From that, we can calculate the total number of correct responses as well. So we get those 2 informations should be noted down. We didn't write down all the letters that were unreadable when you did the exercise before, but you can count them now if you want. So that is an information we need to have as well. Then the time flow, as it is called, is the interval of training, and you've just done 10 seconds. So you can write that somewhere that this was a 10-second time flow or interval. And then when we do changes along the way, we of course need to say that somehow we need to have very clearly a distinction between using the left hand and the right hand. And also if we make smaller changes like changing the pencil with another pencil, that would also possibly be of interest. And now to the what can we use these data that we have collected this way? What can we use it for? Most of you, hopefully, I don't have the data from you, of course, but most of you should have some kind of curve from these 3 data points that you did that is going upward. And when we see data like this is from a arbitrary case signifying a week, the first 5 data points, and then another week and a third week. And for every day, this is, for example, could be a registration of the best result of a multi-trial session with a child learning to read. For instance, discriminating between 3 or 4 letters. And if we see this curve, we see it going upward. That is nice. He's learning. We see the errors going down. then the weekend sets in, and we have to sort of, this is the decline in learning. That is how fast it happens. And I see that with most of the students that we train, that we see that small decline after just two days of not training. But then it goes up again, and the errors are, well, there is a little ascending in errors here at the end of the week. We don't care too much about the errors, but we just continue the week after. And then we get even higher, and now the errors are gone. That is a nice graph. When we see a graph like that, we know that the kid is actually learning the stuff, and we just continue until we reach the fluency threshold. And then we either try to get them above that, or we continue with a new program, or continue in the actual learning of when it's reading, we just go to the next part of the learning program. But not all data look like this. Unfortunately, we find a lot of examples of data that looks, for example, like this, that we have a relatively high, 1/3 of the responses are erroneous, and actually goes up, and then we see that the total number even goes down. When I see a graph like this, and it occurs, well, relatively often, then we need to do something about our program. And usually when this happens, it's because the student is going through too much at the same time. That is the number of discriminants, that is things that the student has to discriminate between. The number is simply too high. For example, when trying to learn to discriminate between, let's say, 3 of the vowels, A, I, and O, we have them in a random order, and they go through them in what is called a free operand procedure. So they have endless possibilities to respond within the time frame. And then we see a curve coming up like this. Then I would very likely remove one of the vowels and just have the student go through the same kind of interval, but with only those 2 letters, for instance, A and O. And funny enough, when we do that, we often then get this graph instantly. So changing the discriminants when we see the descending data, that is one of the major things that we experience actually works out there. There are other kinds of graphs that show that something is wrong. Sometimes it looks like this when it jumps up and down. Now, this is a very simple example. Usually we may have 10 points or trials displayed on the graph. And when it goes up and down and up and down, in one trial he has 10 points, in the next he has 2 or 1, and then he might have 11, and then 5, and then up and down. We found that the time flow may be too long for the child, that especially children with ADHD, they have a very, very short attention span. And sometimes they can do it for whatever time frame we've set up. But very often we then get a graph like this, and if we half the time, we are again suddenly seeing this graph, which is so nice, because then we sort of have a solution to the problem of attention span for children, that we see the attention problem displayed in the data and can react to it quite fast. And when we do, we then get the right kind of learning displayed in the data. The final graph that sometimes occur is when there's just nothing is going on. This is just seems like a waste of time. There is no neither decline nor ascent. And when this happens, there might be 2 reasons for it. There might be more, but there are 2 reasons that mainly occur. One is that it is simply not possible to do it faster. The ceiling has been reached. And sometimes if it is an unknown skill that you do not know where the mastery level begins, you might want to try out for yourself and see if, well, maybe the student is actually doing it as fast as it is possible. Then you'll find out by trying yourself or someone else that you know are able to do it. But most often, we also see that children that have brain damage or some kind of learning disability, not specifically named as such, but we might see this, that they are simply not able to do it faster. I have a few students that do everything in slow motion. They talk slowly, they move slowly, and we actually expect them to reach a ceiling far below what we normally see is and reckon to be a mastery level. But reaching the ceiling is, you can check for that in different ways and should do that before you go to the other possible solution or the other possible explanation, which is that the student simply doesn't really he doesn't care about this, is not interested. When we see a graph like this, we just check for the ceiling, and then you can also usually see it in the whole demeanor of the student. If he's reluctant to even go, and it's like, no, everything is sad and boring, and he doesn't really want to do it. Now, we do set up motivational systems for most of our students before we even begin approaching any kind of training like this, but sometimes we are not able to, or we have not done it for different reasons. But when we see a graph like this, then yeah, we need to do something with with this child's motivation. We need to give him some kind of rewards. We have to put up a reinforcement, some contingencies that can repair this to make him interested. And when we do that, most often we then get this graph again, which is again nice. What we can do, this is just a summary. When we see a graph that goes down, we usually decrease the number of discriminants. We can also increase them in some cases. I'll get back to when we do that. And sometimes we can remove, if we have, let's say we have 5 discriminants, it may be that you're learning or teaching a child the capitals of Europe, and you have 5 countries and 5 capitals and every time they get to the country of, say, Latvia, they have a pause, and it seems to be really hard to remember. Now, we try to do error-free or some kind of direct instruction where you don't get to do errors more than a very few times. So we would remove that one problematic discriminant if we see that it doesn't really compute or doesn't really work, and then get the speed up on the remaining cards or the remaining whatever programs we are using. We use both physical cards. We also use different kinds of programs and apps on iPads and computers. I told you already to decrease the time flow when, especially working with kids with ADHD, we are down to 5 seconds, quite often down to 5-second trials with that kind of diagnose before we actually see the wanted upward graph. You can also increase the time flow, and you should do that when you go from the basic skills that you're training to more advanced skills. And also when you combine different parts of a larger program, then of course we increase the time flow to have enough time to get through a whole deck of cards. But very often we have found that starting out with only 3 discriminants for any kind of program is then you get quite good results quite fast, and then you can take another set of 3 and have the student attain fluency quite fast. And then you can combine those 6 discriminants, and you will see a decline in speed, but you will fast get up to the fluency level. But then you would have increased from, say, doing 20 seconds to maybe 40 seconds on the 6 card deck. There can be other reasons to increase the time flow. We would often use a 3 times normal length of a trial, or the trials we've done, to take a sort of, I think it's called a duration test or endurance test. It's one of these RESA tests, just to see if the child can. Very often the children that I work with, they're not able to maintain the speed for that long, but that may be due to many other factors than the actual training. Especially again, the ones with ADHD, they have problems with that attention span. But we also see that when we go from when the increments in the time floor is not 3 times, but maybe just 1.5. So we go from maybe 10 seconds just to 15 seconds. If we have done a lot of trials with the child, maybe throughout 2 months, and we then try to increase the time flow a little, we still see good results. And we often get feedback from teachers when we've done this a few times, from maybe 10 seconds to maybe half a minute or 45 seconds. Teachers that are dealing with this child on a daily basis will often get back to us and say that, what have you done? Because it seems as if he is better at concentrating now in the classroom as well. So we are sort of trying to increase the time span for the children with ADHD by starting very, very small, with a very small time flow, and then gradually increasing it. And the final thing to do when you see some of these graphs is to set up a motivational system. And that is for a complete separate talk. And probably all of you know a lot of this already, but we set up a motivational system now, not as a reaction to the graphs, but as a precursor to actually training with the kids. We simply have to have it if it is at all possible with the schools to arrange it, and very often with the parents as well. We set up a system where they get points for 1 point for every trial that they go through, and then extra points for reaching or exceeding their previous record, and then 1 extra point if they are flawless. And then that is a maximum of 3 points per trial. And then we do maybe 10 trials, which is 30 points. And then that goes home to the parents, that then have some kind of price lists that we help them set up. And the kid can usually buy the cheapest reward in that system for maybe 20 points. So there's a good incentive for the child to work with us when we have this, and especially when working with learning how to read, it is really tedious to be doing these thousands of repetitions of first letters, and then first vowels, then consonants, and then the combinations of them, and then the reversed combinations of them, and then word lists. Now we do it in Norwegian, so they learn the 400 most common Norwegian words, how to read those as, I think it's called word pictures or something like that. And then before they get there, they've spent maybe 5 hours total with us doing training on a daily basis, and it becomes quite boring. And in order to keep them going, we simply need a motivational system in most cases. The inert reward from the satisfaction from being able to read is so far out in the future that it has no influence on their behavior. Now, I have made an online copy cover compare. You can find out your phones. If you're on your phone now, it'll be a bit difficult. So I hope many of you are on a computer or have the possibility of maybe borrowing a phone from someone else to get on. I hope it's fully visible. Get on the QR code here, and there you will find a copy cover compare is one of these methods that have some sort of empirical evidence base learning effect. So I've made what we've just gone through as an online copy, cover, compare. Be aware that the first section, you get all the answers. They're there. You can just pick out the right one. And in the last section, it's the quiz where you are tested if you can remember what you just answered correctly. So you can go on there right now, and I will see it when you've answered and see how many of you get it right. It is made so that you should get most of it right instantly. But let's see when it happens. If you're in doubt about something, you can also look back on the screen and see in the presentation, all the answers will be on screen right now. I just have to find it again here. There we go. I see the answers ticking in here now. And at least the first ones now have scored all 5 right, which is nice. The pictures in this quiz or learning program are from the Standard Celeration Charts. I'm not sure how many people are attending now, but let me just take a look. I may be able to see it. 59 are here. So I'll expect that at least, well, half of you would be able to do the actual thing here on the QR code. So I'll wait a bit longer and see how many. We only have 8 answers in right now. These questions are also the ones that you will be using to getting the CEUs. If you've somehow missed the attendance tests, you can always get back to this later on and answer. Some of these questions will be part of the CEU. If you are on your phone and would like to try this out, it may be possible for me just to copy and paste into the chat the link so you can go to that one, because I don't see enough people responding so far. We have only 13. It's a very low percentage. I would like more people to actually go through this. Let me just copy this and share in the chat so you can log in that way. It doesn't matter which account you use to answer this. It's completely anonymous anyway, so you can even use another phone. It doesn't matter. But now the form is also here, so you should be able to get into it. Very nice. Yes, I'm gonna continue now, and you can just see if you answer. You can just spend a little time trying to answer the questions as best you can. But I'm gonna go on. Let's see, that was the one here. Yeah, this is the graph that we want to see, and when we see that, we might want to have some kind of criteria that tells us when we should either stop the training, even though it's going well. There might be some signal, and the signal is again the fluency level. But what we have found is that even when people touch upon the mastery level, let's say it's 12 here, we would like to see at least 3 points above. But this is not part of this presentation, but recently we found that we actually wanted to be the first 3 of a new session. If we see a graph like this on screen, normally I would say, nice, let's move on. But when we then do a retention test of maybe a few weeks or 3 months later, we do see a slight decline, which I suspect we would not see if we were above the mastery level before we stop the training. So, and this is a careful balancing between keeping the motivation and going forth for the student, and not destroying his learning what we call his excitement about being, yes, I'm there, I can do this, because we see that quite a lot in children that they get real skills from this, and the actual feeling of mastery is such a rewarding and reinforcing power. And if we then continue to train on something that they feel they have already mastered, that destroys or at least diminishes a bit of that learning incentive that comes from the material itself. So you have to carefully balance between that. Sometimes you can just move on and then maybe go back just once in a while to do a retention check, and the retention check in itself will get the student up to a little higher level than the mastery level. And other times you might want to do just one more, maybe 2 more sessions here with 5 trials, or this may be per week actually. So there should be 5 trials in each of these points. So we may have gotten 3 or 7 or 10 data points above mastery level in each of the 2 last sessions here. But if this were the actual data per trial, then I would say, let's do another session and get the mastery level to be above the 12 mark at the beginning of the session before we move on to a new program or stop this one. Now to something completely different. You may know that precision teaching is still an emerging method, as categorized by it's called What Works Clearinghouse for teachers. It may change quite soon, I hope it will, and become an actual evidenced method. But we all know that this actually works quite well, and especially in one-to-one sessions with one student, one teacher, or maybe a few students. Now, in Norway, very few people know about this method, and the ones that do are behavior analysts and a few special pedagogues that do this and use this in just with one student at a time. To get this phenomenal method into the classroom would change many things for many students worldwide. If we could have a revolution of precision teaching, as I think many people from Morningside has advocated for a long time, and I strongly support them in that. It would be wonderful to have the general educational system adapt precision teaching into the normal day-to-day program for all students. But there are some obstacles, and one of them is that we only mainly have the special pedagogues and behavior analysts working one-on-one with students. And how can one teacher that with 20 students just adapt this method? So one solution is using peer tutoring. Peer tutoring has many different definitions. I'll just use a few here to sort of get you on the track. Peer tutoring is to set two children together in a classroom, and they work with each other. They may work. The one is checking the other, and then they switch, or it may be that they're working together on a specific project or stuff. This is better than using the normal group version where you put 5 or 6 students together. Peer tutoring has shown quite better results in the studies that I have found going through it as compared to group work. But there are many ways of doing it. One is to rotate all students daily or at every session to avoid friction, especially in younger age groups. You can, and this is done in Norway. A lot of teachers use this method. They don't use precision teaching, but they use peer tutoring in that they let students work 2 and 2 together, often the same 2 students for maybe a month at a time. And that is not recommended by the, again, not too many studies done, but they're beginning to pop up worldwide. It seems as if it's better to rotate them, preferably daily or at every session if possible. It also helps them to relate to each other in manners that, well, it would be called social learning, I guess, that they can relate to different sex, different levels of skill sets, different levels of all kinds of other factors that we don't even have an overview of. But it seems to be quite well working when you do it often. It can be a randomized way of doing it. I like this circle thing where you write the names of all your students in the inner circle and the outer circle, and then you just rotate the outer circle one step at a time, and everybody changes seats accordingly. That is a very low-tech way of doing it. Else, I have a link here for a random match thing where you just put in the names, and it'll automatically make pairs for you. Let me just copy that. Oh no, I couldn't copy it. I'm sorry. No. Thing about peer tutoring, often I see teachers using it also at the higher level education in the university. Sometimes a presenter or lecturer will say, going through the material, and then he will just say, now you talk to your neighbor for 2 minutes about what I just said. And they call that peer tutoring as well, which is not very effective teaching or learning at all. So I recommend that you set up clear, concise, and specific learning targets like you would do in precision teaching, things that can be measured or tested directly. If you don't use precision teaching, oh, hang on. If you don't use precision teaching, you can then do other kinds of tests to check that the individual student has actually learned something from the peer tutoring and not just your presentation. That may be written tests, or it may be that you have the individual student, not the pair, but the individual student do some kind of short presentation of whatever material you are working with. I like to give examples of learning targets. This is, of course, from precision teaching. Students must point to the Scandinavian countries, name them and their capitals unaided within 20 seconds. And then you have X number of Scandinavian countries, of course, in that learning target. Some think that to have pairs of students work together is some kind of social learning in itself. It may be, it may not be, but I've seen it a little misused, especially at the higher level education. So just my personal view upon it is that, come on, let's learn the stuff we need to learn, and then we can talk about it, yeah, but don't waste our time. I'm going to give you an example of how to use this peer tutoring to have precision teaching move into the classroom. Here is a program that I have used a few times with second graders, third graders, and up to sixth graders. I think we've done this with. They all love dinosaurs, but very rarely do they know the names. It's only the one odd fellow in the classroom who knows all the dinosaurs by names, but most do not. So what we did was we found 2 pictures of 6 different dinosaurs, and we made physical cards with each deck of cards was 30 cards total, 5 cards of each of the 6 different dinosaurs. And then there were 2 different pictures of them also in the deck. We also put in a color code 2 and 2 so that you could easily find 2 dinosaurs of the same color and combine them, and so that you could train just those 2, and then some other 2 in another color, and the last 2 in a third color. And it looks like this: a picture on one side, and then the name on the other side of the card. Here it is Triceratops. What we then do was ask the children to use only one color from the deck. That would be 2 discriminants, but with 2 different pictures of each, so that we tried to give a preliminary generalization to be able to recognize those particular 2 dinosaurs from 2 different angles, and then find a partner, of course. And I like to put in here again that working in groups does not have empirical support as to learning outcome. I like to say that to teachers. They always get a bit frustrated with that statement, but I also challenge them to say, I would like to see a study that actually shows the learning outcome, empirically good, scientifically rigor study done that shows the learning outcome of working in groups, because I have not found anything, and I've been looking. But if you find one partner and work, it's peer tutoring that has some kind of evidence-based, scientific-based. Then I get the children to actually try it out. First, they look through the cards, and so that we know they can actually say the names or read the names. And then the partner starts the countdown, and in the second level grades, they can use their phones. In the smaller classrooms, we just have one timer on the blackboard or on the teacher's phone, and then everybody does it at the same time. And then the one doing it is looking at the picture on the one side and say the name, and he can cheat if he can't remember, and nobody can remember to begin with. So they all change. They all cheat by looking at the card, and they love it that they're allowed to cheat. The children like that idea, so we use that for all it's worth as a reinforcer in itself to get them do it. And then when they have said the name of the dinosaur, they just drop the card on the table and go on with the next card. And if they do it correctly, it takes a little exercise to have them flip the card correctly, so that the learning partner, the peer tutor, will see the flip side, that is the name of the dinosaur and can then see if you answered correctly. And he's then supposed to just count the errors on his fingers. And if you correct yourself, you just remove the error again instantly. But if he just continues with the deck, you maintain your finger, preferably out of the sight of the one going through the deck. So he can't see, he doesn't focus on his errors, but you count the errors. And then you note down the number of cards when the timer runs out, how many cards are on the table, and put the possible errors in parentheses. And then we have them change roles and repeat this at least 3 times each a day, and they learn to recognize these dinosaurs quite fast. Here's an example of how to just write down the score. We're not using the Standard Celeration Charts to begin with. We just want them to be able to do this part of the procedure of precision teaching, the fluency, the frequency building, the fluency-based instruction, because that is the learning part of it. The registration part of it can come a little later. But when they're able to cut down these numbers and possible errors, that's nice. Then we can introduce the Standard Celeration Chart in a later session. So to have them learn things and learn it easily, we go for this only 2 discriminations to start with, and work with it until they have fluency. And here it would be 20 correct in 10 seconds. A little dependent on the age groups, because some of the smaller children are simply not physically able to handle a deck of cards correctly. They will drop them, or they will turn them in all manner of different ways, so that they make it harder for themselves to actually do it. But adults can do it, can get 10 corrects in 10 seconds. There will be 20 or even 23 cards on the table when you do this in 10 seconds, when you know the names of the actual dinosaurs. And once you have achieved the fluency, or for the smaller children, it would be maybe 15 or even only 12 in 10 seconds. Then we add the extra discriminant to that particular deck that particular person is working with. In a classroom, that is possible because of the whole peer tutoring concept. You don't have to have the same deck, even if you work with another partner. He can have his own deck of dinosaurs, and you can have your deck. Most often we let them share, but once we have a few students that we see they learn faster than the others, then they get separate decks and can then work in their tempo and be challenged in their tempo and learn maybe a lot more than the rest of the classroom, but they still interact in the peer tutoring session with another student that then checks if the cards that fall down on the table are correctly answered. And again, once we have another discriminant, then we have 3 dinosaurs, then we will see a little decline because the new card has been introduced, and then once we get that up to fluency, we can keep adding the new dinosaurs till they're all mastered. Another way of doing this is to train 2 dinosaurs, put them aside, and train another group of 2, and put them aside and train the last 2, and then put all 6 together. Each of the steps you train to fluency. And I put in here fluency at 10 seconds because we've worked a lot on that time frame. I know that the teachers at Morningside and in general, the whole Standard Celeration Chart is built a little more around the 1 minute point, which is very nice. But I do see the benefit of very short 10 seconds interval trials. That makes a difference for especially the younger children. We keep them at it. Yeah, here we have used the aim for verbal skills 120 responses per minute, but remember that there is a physical element in managing cards, so it may not be 20 correct for your group of students if you work with younger students. You will have to sort of figure that out by having you try it for yourself, and then you try to be a little clumsy and figure out where is the level where is the mastery level here that I would want my children to attain. Here's another example of how to use precision teaching and use it in a group of people facilitating the peer tutoring element. These are chords on guitars, and these are the two most easy chords to take because you only need 2 fingers on the board to play them. The actual physical movement of changing between them is the discrimination training here. So what we do when we teach people to play the guitar this way using precision teaching, first, of course, a little direct instruction and modeling. You show how to do it, and you have the student do it and check that he's doing it correctly. And this has to be done with each individual student before we can begin the fluency training. But once you've seen that they can do the E minor and the A7, you don't have to have them play with the right hand, just the left hand on the guitar. Once you've seen they've done that, you start the timer and have one half of the group sit with the guitar and change between these 2 chords as fast as they can without making any sounds at all. And then the peer tutor is counting the shifts. Also, if it's not entirely correct, there may be errors in the beginning, you also count them as a peer tutor. And then you put it down on paper afterwards. We found when we did this that a 30-second time flow is very, very nice to start out with here. The fingers get a little sore from too much repetition and too long, and you get stiff in the fingers and in the wrists if we use 1 minute session. So 30 seconds is ideal. And when you've done your trial, the peer tutor is then, you change seats, and he has the guitar and he's doing the same thing. And then you check if he's getting it correctly, and you count them and jot down the results afterwards. This is then individualized quite fast because some will have thick fingers, some will have difficulties with the knuckles and stuff, while others will have limp features and will learn faster. And once they reach a fluency level of it's for a professional guitarist, they can change above 2 per second, which is very fast. But the fluency level where you don't really diminish in speed when you do not play the guitar for some months starts at around 35 or 35 and 30 seconds, a little above 1 per second. So once we have the students reach 35 correct shifts between these 2 chords in 30 seconds, they then move on and get either 2 new chords with 3 fingers on the board, or maybe one of these combined with, for example, the D major. And then later on, it gets harder, some of the more harder, physically harder and more advanced, like the F with a barré at hold, and B7, stuff like that. We move on to that, not in the beginning, but we start with 2 fingers and then 3 fingers and then 4-finger chords, and all kinds of shifts between them. That means you can have the C major, the A minor, the D minor, the G, in that order, and have them just go through that order as many times as possible in 30 seconds. And that will actually teach them how to play most songs from a songbook quite easily. We did this with a large group of people here in Norway. I have the DOI for the English translation of the publication, establishing basic skills in guitar playing and reducing absenteeism. We also did that through precision teaching. Now, at the time, I did the whole inscribing into the Standard Celeration Chart after I had all the data from the participants. And that is sort of not really precision teaching then, because in precision teaching, you use the graph to, in the actual teaching situation or learning situation, to decide where the student is going next. You use the Standard Celeration Chart to make informed decisions on what to do with the learning program and the student progression. And I did not really use the Standard Celeration Charts for that. I just used the numbers that the students jotted down. It's the same thing in theory, but it takes so much longer to decipher the numbers that someone writes down on a piece of paper than it does to just take a glance of the Standard Celeration Chart. The Standard Celeration Chart is a genius piece of work that I hated it when I first was introduced to it. I thought it was way too complicated and way too weird. But now I'm really in love with it because it's so easy to read. It takes 1 second to see the progression history or lack of progression history of a student. And he may have jotted in the dots and X's for errors himself, and it may be a little hard to read his lines and stuff, but it's still so much easier than if he had written down the numbers as I did in this study. You're very welcome to go and look at it. I'm not sure if you can actually point on a link on the screen. Is that possible? If you can, you can just click on it and have it pop up somewhere else and read it when at your leisure. But it's a very nice little study on how to learn to play guitar that I can only encourage you to adapt. And that way of working with a physical skill, yeah, I'll copy it into the chat. Let's see, how do I do that? I'm in a presentation, so I just have to go out for a second and just copy it here. And then back to the presentation, and then here. There you go. It should work, I hope. It worked the last time I checked it. Right. Now, the way this is that we use it to individually adapt the learning programs, it's very simple. When we have a student that is taking some, let's say he uses five trials to achieve fluency. It happens. Then we add another discriminant to his next program. And I do a test with 3 unknown symbols and sounds. I made it with some letters from the Cherokee alphabet. Nobody knows that. The actual letters are called he, ha, ho, and that's the way to pronounce them. But the symbols are unsimilar to anything else, so you don't have anything to compare it to. But are you able to learn those 3 symbols and their to see and say them in less than 10 trials? Not learn them to fluency, just to the level of 10 correct in 10 seconds. Then we have found that those children that does that, they are really good at learning with 3 discriminants. That's sort of the normal number of discriminants that will work quite well for them. Whereas if the child needs to take more than 10 trials for that particular test, we don't go that far. We don't let them experience that kind of dragging on with stuff they don't learn. If they haven't reached 10 in 10 seconds in 10 trials, then we start out with only 2 discriminants, and we see that we then hit the right learning curve instantly instead of going through all these downward or stagnating graphs. If that is the one here. If we are in the middle of a program and we count the number of trials to achieve fluency, now these numbers are just examples, because you need to figure that out for each skill set and each student. Some students learn faster than others. You have to figure that out. But if you see that someone is learning faster, you just add another discriminant. And if you see they spend a lot of time, the graph is moving very slowly upward. We don't have that 45-degree angle, which is the minimum of learning we can expect from a good program. then you should remove a discriminant for that student. And that is how we can do it with the graphs we get in from the peer tutoring sessions. The graphs will show us what to do with each student, even though we have not made the graphs. The children have made the graphs for each other, but we can use them still to make if they're using physical cards, we can remove a discriminant from the deck of cards, or if they're using digital means, we can also do it there. And we do this all the time. Now, a short reminder what can be trained with the precision teaching methods and the other two. I say all real skills. And I'm not sure verbal skills are real. I like to put that out there. But we teach children to spell and read all the time. And we expand vocabularies in different languages for them, and all kinds of math. It's wonderful to train precision teaching. Math is just fantastic with precision. That is just mind-blowing how easy it is to have everybody be really good at math. To say the right thing at the right time is a social skill. To read musical notation, very, very good at that. And then to recognize visual stimuli, of course, many of you will know this from working with children with autism. Physical skills, all these are examples from live, either from research done or from stuff we've done with our children. To write is a different skill than to read. Many teachers combine them in the learning process, and it's nice when they do that, but it is still two separate skills, and you can be quite well at reading and not be able to write a word on a piece of paper. Not sure the other way around exists, but I have students that can read and cannot write, and we then teach them that. But to teach them that, we often have to start with how to hold a pen. I have a girl in second grade right now. She is not able to write, and she's left-handed, which is not usually a problem, but she has really difficulties just holding correctly on a pen. And we use precision teaching for her not only to write the letters, but also to hold the pen correctly while doing it. And we reward that whenever she does it right, she gets extra points for her motivational system. To tie shoelaces, do it on time. Play football and other sports, yes, it's possible. I've not done it, I don't know, but I've seen a few very innovative ways of having people time things. If you time the basic skills, you get a learning curve. You can see that the person is being better at, for example, you put a football 1 meter away from the goal and have people shoot in as many as possible, so as many balls as possible in, say, 10 seconds. And then you move it out 2 meters, 3 meters, 5 meters, and it's fun, and they love it, and they get better at actually kicking the ball in the right direction. Dancing, I saw a study done here in Norway with some classical dancing, some ballet dancing, where they use precision teaching. That's actually a published study. Play instruments, that's my study on guitar, and there may be others out there. But also to put on clothes, I did that with my own children. That was really nice, especially when you have 3 kids and you have to get out the door for something, going to some event. We were often in the situation that we had to set aside 20 minutes to get them all dressed, because we had to more or less do it for them. But with precision teaching, or at that time, I did not use the Standard Celeration Chart, so it was fluency-based instruction and frequency building. We just put up a timer and had them do it themselves, and they actually spent, I think, 20 minutes the first session, or maybe 19 minutes, or maybe it was 21. I don't remember. It took forever. But then the next day, it was just a race. Can you beat your record? And of course they did, and they got rewards. So we reinforced that behavior to occur on the next session. And then we actually had them do it, I think, 5 or 6 times in a row. take all your clothes on, get out the door. Fine, you did it in 3 minutes. Let's go in and take everything off and then do it again. And they got points every time and got ice cream and stuff. And it a lot of laughs and fun. And after that, this took total, maybe we spent not even an hour on it, and less than 3 days in a row. And after that, it took 2 minutes to get out the door in general. So from 20 minutes to 2 minutes, and using this method, that was just nice. Now, the thing that I get asked a lot from teachers is, what about understanding? And I usually take it from the beginning of my presentation. I say, we don't work with understanding at all. If you want to teach children how to understand something, you should not use this method. It's just not, that's not how it works. This is a method for automating any kind of real skill. So if you cannot define the skill, if your definition of understanding, and it often is lacking, then nope, this is not it. And that just stops it right there. And don't have problems with teachers asking or wanting me to work from the top down with this floating in the air idea that we can somehow instill an understanding of reading in a child without training the basic letters. You would be amazed of how many teachers I meet that actually believe that nonsense. They are out there. They live amongst us. One benefit, an extra benefit from using these methods are that as a teacher, you know exactly what your student is able to do in that particular area or that skill set. You can read it and you can interpret it directly in the SCC. That is a real bonus. I have made a smart little thing here for you. I'm going to show you how it works. It's a generator to make a deck of cards that has 24 cards in it that will position itself correctly on each side of the card. It comes in the form of a PDF file. Once you go into this one, you can make one. Unfortunately, it is in Norwegian, but you just fill out your email address, and the first question is what you would want to name the deck, because that name will be on the deck in a sort of a little bar on the side. And the rest are questions concerning the level you want them to study on. Do you need 3, 2, 4, 6 discriminants? And once you have answered that, you can also use Google Translator if you want to get the drift of it. But once you have filled out the questions, you just press send, and you will get a PDF file with the cards set up correctly for your instant printout. Quite easy to use. I'm going to open it here so you can take a look at it. I'm not sure you're going to see that. You're seeing that screen right now, I hope. Let's just check. Let me just check that we are seeing that screen. No, we're not. You're seeing the QR code still, yeah. All right, I'm not going into that detail then. We just leave that for now. Yeah, you see the QR code. You can just go in on the QR codes yourself, save it somewhere on your phone, use it for everything it's worth if you like, to make a deck of cards, 24 cards that's suitable for 10-second sessions or trials with children. See if you can use it. If you can't use it or don't find it valuable, it's fine, but it's free for you to use. A lot of teachers use it. There is along with this, there is also a bank of all the ones that have been done or made before. And that file is also here on the link. I think the whole presentation might be something that could be sent out to those of you that are interested afterwards, so you get this link. Of course, a lot of it would be, for now, in Norwegian, because we work in Norway. For a PC browser, you have access through this link. You can just put this right into your chat, into your browser, and you should be able to open it there. Hang on, I jumped too fast. I like to give a tip of the day to let your students in your classroom make their own flashcards. So once you have access to this, you can use this, or you can make a copy in English of this. It's on a Google, I think it's called a Google form. It's very easy to make. So you can copy the whole form, and it's there is some programming beneath it that you might want to take a look at. But you're welcome to do so. It makes life easier for both teachers and students. They can use this to instantly get this PDF file with 24 cards ready to print out and then cut out. I usually tell people to laminate the cards before they cut them out, because then they last longer and you can use them next year. You don't have to use a lot of paper. We need to save the forests as well. So let's do that. Now, some hidden myths about teaching. I like to say this to teachers, that one of the myths out there is that you teach by talking to children. Another myth connected to that is that the children actually learn anything from listening. And that's why we have these many behavioral problems in school. That is one of the major things. Children do not just misbehave, they react to the adults. And there's nothing more boring than listen to someone talking, going on and on and on, like I'm doing now. I know most of you are probably really bored by now. I'm sorry. We're nearly done. Hang in there. We just have we have 10 minutes left, I think. Yeah. Oh, I'm rambling on here. I'm sorry. We're nearly done, so hang in there. And the last one I have here is that a lot of teachers think that if they have told a child something and they have had the child repeat it one time, then the child should be able to do what is in the instruction. That is also a myth. None of these are true. They're just wrong. The thing comes from teaching is not learning. Teaching is something that teachers do, and it should be facilitating for learning, which is something the student is doing, not the teacher. So if we can facilitate learning, we've done our jobs. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, you have to actually have a good curriculum. You have to have a logical, like a direct instruction program that's built up logically. It's progressing through different steps. What should your students be able to do after that particular one session you have had? Usually it shouldn't be more than 5 things that you want them to learn. And then you should have some kind of measurement of how to check if they are actually able to do it. Success and failure criteria. So to do this, you need to limit the number of new topics in a session. You need to sequence learning materials into logical parts, which is what direct instruction is doing. And of course, go from the simple to the complex. All this is part of both the direct instruction and the precision teaching way of working with the material that we train. Take a look at this one. It is just a quick one going through these same things I just said now. This is another online copy cover compare program. You can just use the QR code. For those of you that like this kind of way of learning, these questions that you are presented will be the same questions that you need to answer to get the CEUs if you did not press the button when it came up for attendance. I'm just going to go, the answers to all the questions are here now on the screen, but they're also in the program. So I'm going to continue now to end this, but because there might be questions out there and we want to get to those. The last QR code is my contact. You're welcome to contact me directly if you have questions later on, or if you think you could benefit or maybe benefit me, or you could benefit from any kind of help I can assist you with in your day-to-day teaching or educational role. So please feel free to do so. I think this was, we have time to get some questions in. I hope I have not taken too much of the time given, Carola.
No, you're perfectly fine. Thank you so much, Rasmi. Um, I thought that was really, really interesting, especially I like the comment that they live amongst us. I think that's the mentalists, they live among us. That's quite a good thing to think about. They really do. There aren't any questions in the question section of the Behavior Live, and there weren't any at the in the comments in the chat either, which means that you were very, very clear and easy to understand. But I have a question. I'm just wondering, sometimes when behaviour analysts in the UK and Northern Ireland want to get into or tasked to get into the classroom in mainstream schools, they're not always welcome.
Oh no, that's the same here.
Sometimes it can be difficult to establish yourself. Oftentimes, when it comes to maybe supporting a child that has some issues with going to school, like school refusal or school anxiety, and the behaviour analyst is there to help them getting back into the school, then they're not always welcome. How do you deal with that in Norway? Is that you said it's the same here sometimes? How do you deal with that in Norway?
I think it's the same way that worldwide people we each find our individual way to get in the door. My way has been to always be not. It's actually the same way we work with the children. I'm very little focus on the errors. I'm focused on what they do right, and it's
Yeah.
the same with the adults. When I started my career here, I've been banned from several schools. They just don't want me back ever because I was very outspoken. I said that what you're doing there is wrong. Now let me show you how to do it. And that doesn't work. That just doesn't work. That's not the way. So I learned that the hard way. Now I wait for them to ask me to come. That's the first thing. I'm not going there unless they ask me. It
Yeah.
may not be the teachers that ask. It's very often the parents or the principal or the manager of that particular level. They have managers of levels here in Norway that are not teachers. So they see problems and then they ask us to come in. I have a team of people working, and when we come in, we try to be as polite as possible. That's simply if we are polite from the beginning and a little humble, saying that we might not be able to do a lot here. I'm sorry, but if we can, we would really like to help, and we would like to take a look at it and see if we can help. We may not be able to, but if we can just get a week where we are allowed to come and watch, and if the children ask us why we're there, we can say that we're there to look at you as an adult because we want to learn from you. That's a good sale usually. And if we always have the principal inform the whole staff that we're there. And also we send them a problem formulation form in the beginning to the principal that then distributes it to everyone that should know about us, where they answer a lot of questions, not too many. It takes about 15 minutes to fill out that form, but we inform them on how we work, a little about behavior analysis and a little about we will be using phones to record data, and you shouldn't be too alarmed if we just come in at any point of during the day. We want to come unannounced. We don't want East German setups. We want to be able to see the relations in the natural settings between you and the children, and between the children, and between whomever might come into the classroom. We want to really get a good feeling of how you work as a teacher and how we might be able to help. If we have that it's still not all cases we get in, but it has shown to be a much easier entrance into especially the people that has never worked with us before.
I think your good reputation goes ahead of you then if you've been able to teach to help one school or with particular children.
Exactly.
Maybe you get from one classroom into the next one if the teachers amongst themselves say, well, when Rasmi came, he sorted that kid out in no time at all. Another
that is
teacher
really,
might say, well, maybe we'll get Rasmi to have a look at our kids.
yes, that is how it works now. But to get there, I had to also sort out the cases. In the beginning, I started to take. I made my own statistics on cases I solved, and how well did I work with the parents? How well did I work with the individual teachers? How well did I work with the management on the school? And from that, I found that if I have the mother of the child, if she's on board, I have about 60% higher chance of success. If I do not have the mother, then it may still work, but there's a fairly large chance that it won't.
Yeah.
But with the teachers, it was it was actually the way they respond to my initial form tells me. I found that out in the beginning. If they respond in a certain way, if, for instance, if they take 2 weeks to reply, I already know that I'm not going to get in there. It's not going to
Yeah.
work because I have that from statistical data from years before. That the
So I
ones
mean, in
that
some
didn't
sense,
answer,
yeah.
no
So
no
in a
use
lot
in
of
going
ways,
there. It will be waste of their time and my time. But the
yeah.
ones that answer, and also I have a social validity questionnaire put in at the end of that. If they answer in a certain way, I can say, oh, here's someone we should all sails on. Let's get in there because this is going to work. And once I pick out the cases where I know it's going to work, and then the other ones, I talk to the principal and explain to him, well, for different reasons, blah, 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 very politely. No, I don't think we have anything to offer here. We cannot, I don't think we can help you. I'm sorry. But I can refer you to this and that other person in the department and stuff, and they can't help them either, but they don't know that. But then at least I have given them some kind of referral. But then the cases that we work with, for 2 years in a row, I only picked out the cases that I had a relatively high success rate from the statistical material before. And that really pays off today because I had a 100% solution rate for 2 years in a row. All the cases were solved positively because of that. But I was really hard, and I'm not taking that case. I'm not taking that case. I'm going to take this case and only that right now. And now the teachers that we get, they have heard about it from the teachers that we have worked with for those 2 years in a row. That it's 3 years ago. So for the last 3 years, the cases are becoming easier and easier because they've heard about it. They sort of know us before we get there, and that helps a lot.
I mean, that sounds like a really good way forward for some people, because it is so frustrating when schools won't let you in or teachers won't let you into the classroom, that you also just say, well, if that's not going to work, I'm not going to spend so much time on the ones that don't want me. I'd focus in on the ones that do, and then hopefully that will have a snowball effect. I think
It
that's
has.
yeah.
It
Oh yeah,
has for
absolutely.
me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like using behavior analysis not just for the kids, and I'm always thinking that you know, a lot of behavior analysts focus in on the kids and what they can do for the kids, but they don't focus in on the parents, in this case also on the teachers. As you say, when you have the mothers or probably the fathers, whichever, when you have the parent, then you're more than halfway there. And I really like that, because I think, you know, as a parent myself, if somebody came along and told me what they want to teach my child without checking with me whether I find that important, I wouldn't like that very much. You know, as a parent, you have your ideas as to what your child should learn, especially when they're very young. I mean, later on, the kids have their own ideas, but at the beginning, you as a parent should be in charge of what your child learns and then how they're taught. And so I think the collaboration with the parents, and then obviously the collaboration with the teachers, because your methods and your you know, the fluency-based instruction is so evidence and so clear to understand. So I think we've just had our fourth attendance check as well, and we've run over our 1.5 CEU time scale, I think we said. So we're okay for now. So I think at the moment there's not a lot of questions coming in, because I think you were so clear in your presentation, So it remains to me just to thank you very much for your time, and as Amanda says, thank you very much for your time and the information, and
You're
also for
welcome.
sharing those really valuable QR codes and allowing people to create their own. So thank you so much, Rasmi, and I hope we'll have you back again some other time. And just remains to me to thank you, and thanks everybody for attending the Centre for Behaviour Analysis webinar 2024 webinar series. So all the very best, and thank you. Okay.